Hi, thanks very much for inviting me to speak at this event. I really appreciate it. I'm actually quite new to the Meta Group, but then I think so many of you are as well. So let me first, before I explain the Global Innovation Platform, you sort of have to understand a little bit about the Meta Group, um, where we come from, what we do, in order to understand how the Global Innovation Platform's genesis, really. So let me first just go, by way of introduction, a few slides about who we are. What we do is support knowledge-intensive entrepreneurialism. We're the only international group with an integrated approach to this. On the one hand, we provide a lot of innovation consultancy from levels, up to the European Commission, right down to individual cities. We also cultivate entrepreneurs. We train them, we mentor them. We also do the same thing with scientists with advanced research results. And finally, we finance it. We manage a number of venture capital funds. We've invested in hundreds of small companies, which is why we train them, we mentor them, and so on. These three things all fit together, after all, because we don't, for example, provide advice to cities based out of ivory tower theory. It's based on our knowledge of startups because we invest in them, we train them. That helps inform our innovation policy. And basically all three of these activities support each other. We've been doing this for 20 years. And as I mentioned, I'll go and get onto some figures. In terms of innovation consultancy, we've done loads of regional innovation strategies and smart specialization strategies. We have contracts with the European Commission so that when scientists in their research projects need help with their business models, we come in and we help out. We've done hundreds of these feasibility studies and assignments, and a lot of the knowledge from that has gone into the Global Innovation Platform. In terms of cultivating entrepreneurialism, one of the other activities, we've trained over 3,000 people. We work with the Kaufman Institute. We've developed an investor readiness online tool. As I mentioned before, we do a lot of work with scientists to try to help them figure out how to commercialize their results of their research. We've developed this thing called Creativity Camp for young entrepreneurs. And again, a lot of these learnings, what we learned from these activities, has also gone into the Global Innovation Platform. And finally, in terms of financing, we run 8 seed capital funds, about 100 million euros under management. We work with all sorts of networks. We haven't listed them all here. We're involved in business angels and crowdfunding as well. In other words, we put our money where our mouth is. Just some of our money goes into these companies that we invest in. And we're the only company that does these public-private equity instruments backed by the Juncker plan in more than one country. So what we learn in one country can apply to in other countries as well. We get a sort of uniquely interesting European perspective there. There's some figures from some of our investment funds, but let's just get on to the Global Innovation Platform. That was just to set the scene, really. Okay, what is it? Why is it different to other things? Because, I'm sure you've heard about other schemes or systems for improving entrepreneurialism. The context for this is that cities, regions, countries need to go from a managed economy to a more entrepreneurial economy. I'm not telling you something you don't know, but it's worth reiterating that knowledge is at the heart of growth these days. It's not about plants and factories and so on. And individuals are increasingly replacing large firms as the source of that knowledge. Turning that knowledge into goods and services requires both large companies and small companies, and the partnerships between them is a really good way forward. And for public policy people, they need to really move away from the traditional industrial policy, which was perhaps more suitable earlier, to a broader policy to promote innovation and help startups start up. And in particular, within that context, we've got the rise of the city, the urban innovation ecosystem. Cities want to design themselves so that they foster their homegrown entrepreneurs, but also attract them in from elsewhere. And large companies are also looking for the right urban ecosystem as well, not just for themselves, but for their suppliers, for other small companies that can help them grow. As I mentioned before, the partnership between large companies and innovative startups can be very profound. So in a nutshell, what GIP is, it's a city-level innovation booster. It's aiming at a city, and it's challenge-based. So we talk about challenge-driven innovation, and I'll explain what I mean by that later. But essentially, what it means is GIP will help a city become more innovative and solve its local problems, as well as foster the emergence of knowledge-intensive companies and connect them across Europe. Because as I mentioned before, Meta Group works in many different countries. So this is where we're talking about the middle bit here, helping institutions and urban ecosystems around the world foster more companies. In the past, we've done many regional innovation strategies and smart specialization strategies, and they're great, don't get me wrong, but it's led us to focus on a more bottom-up approach. Seeing the urban ecosystem as an innovation ecosystem rather than sort of the top-down regional approach. So when you're focusing on the city, you focus first on its needs and its unique selling proposition, and you analyze what it's got going for it, the local companies and universities, all the other innovation assets. And then you take that and you put it through this framework and this process that we've developed called GIP. And we have a dedicated IT tool to support that. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got these European networks which come into play at a certain point. So let me quickly take you through, first, the local stakeholders who get involved in a GIP. Of course, the city itself has to be involved. And a GIP needs one or more large local company. And in addition, all of the other players at the local level, the local entrepreneurs and SMEs, academia, investors, and intermediaries and service providers, like accelerators and incubators and all of that. They're all involved in this. This does not replace them. This puts a challenge-driven approach on top of what you've already got. So you take those stakeholders and you put them through this 4-step process. First, you profile the ecosystem. What have you got today? Now, this is led by the city and the local large companies, but it can also involve other sponsors, service providers, and so on. And the result of this, the aim, is to come up with a roadmap which sets out the city's USP and maps the local champions. Where are they? What are they good at? And then you take that roadmap and you define the challenges. Now, this is led by the city. What challenges are required? But, of course, the process allows all of the other players to input into identifying what those challenges are. And the result is that you're ready to launch. You've got your online environment prepared. You've got everything set up to go. So all I need now to do is to define what I mean by a challenge. But essentially, a challenge is, something that the city needs to do that requires a solution, a product or a service, and that product or service has to be supplied by somebody, a company. And there's a good chance that there are other cities out there who also face that challenge. So therefore, there are other markets other than just you. So now you've defined your challenges and your ecosystem is engaged. Then you launch them. And there's a process for that. The roadshows, we have a roadshow system, obviously the online component, social press relations and all of that. But it's not limited just to your city. We're targeting, and we're working with startups and large local companies, as the SMEs, academia and all of that. But the process doesn't just mobilize them, it mobilizes players from across Europe who are relevant. And you end up with teams of these solution providers mobilized around the challenge. and then you implement the challenge. So the teams of solution providers who've been mobilized around these challenges are brought together through a process, GIP events. These are workshops, coaching, mentoring, pitching sessions to investors, online training and support, all of the things that we do to help companies start up. But they're all focused around these challenges. And the result of all of that is that you bring those solutions to your challenges to reality. You get practical products and services which meet that challenge, and they're brought to investors both local to the city and across Europe. And we also take them to markets across Europe, because as I mentioned before, if one city has a challenge, chances are there are others. And as a result, not only do these companies actually come into being and solve your problem, but in the process, your city has become a challenge-driven ecosystem which nurtures its entrepreneurs, but also attracts them in from outside, and it becomes therefore attractive to entrepreneurs from other cities as well, and to investors. So the result, in summary, you open your ecosystem up, you mobilize everybody around your challenges, you help the people in your city find the partners and finance that they need, and you help the local large companies support development of your city. As a result, you accelerate the emergence of solutions to these challenges. You connect your city to other cities via your companies, and you improve and showcase your city as an ecosystem which nurtures the entrepreneurs that are there and attracts more of them inwards. Now, this has been road tested already. We are involved in a Startup Europe project supported by the European Commission called Digital Twisters. It's connecting together ecosystems in 4 different countries: Rome, which is basically where we're from, but also Stockholm, Lille, and Warsaw. And you can see some of these events which have already taken place. These are GIP events which have taken place. We have our online platform up and running. Here's a few screenshots from inside it. Essentially, you need to get more information from us. You can come to me and I'll relay it on. But the person you really want to speak to is the Vice President of the Meta Group. He's the President of the International Network for SMEs. He's a chap named Andrea Di Anselmo. And he'd normally be here, so he sends his apologies. But I hope that you can see the value of this approach, and that if you have any more questions, either get in touch with myself or Andrea, and we'll set up a Skype call or a meeting in the near future. Thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate your attention. Bye.